Hello, my name is Ethan Sherman Groves. I'm an artist. I spend a lot of my free time drawing and working on my hobbies. Uh, and I work at Bill's Food Center. Finding your dream can be difficult, and it's kind of can be confusing. It's you think one thing may be your dream, at least for me, and then the next day it seems to change. And I think I grew up thinking that the goal of my dream was to get the job of my dreams, but I think I think now it's more about being able to do what I want to do when I can or when I want to. So a job like working at Bill's has been working out very well for me so far, and I've actually been very happy there. A job that I didn't think I would like very much. I applied to be grocery because I didn't want to be talking to people. Not something I've been experienced with in my previous jobs, working in factories or uh, other kind of just not public service jobs, I guess is what you could call them. Uh, but I went into the interview and Karen said, "We want to put you on as a checker, even though you applied as grocery." And because I needed the job and I didn't really feel like applying anywhere else, I was looking for a place in town. Uh, I just said, "Sure, I might just jump in, go with it," and it's turned out to be my favorite. My favorite thing to do is to be a cashier. I like working anywhere in the building, but uh, that ended up being what I love to do. In high school, I was like, I want to be a comic book artist or a manga artist, which I don't know about that anymore. Uh, then, like, as I was going to college, I was thinking maybe I'll design T-shirts or album covers, like be a graphic design, advertisement kind of media person. But then after talking with my printmaking professor, or well, she was just my advisor at the time, I told her I had some interest in printmaking, and you had to be to like start taking printmaking or like the advanced courses. You had to be like a junior in college already. But because she was my advisor, she just kind of let me slide into the advanced courses right away, and I think I kind of fell in love with printmaking the most very early on. I fell in love with the process. Just kind of it starts out kind of very loose, and you plan and plan and plan, and then once you start actually working on the product, it becomes very methodical and meditative and relaxing. And the end product, it always feels good when it comes out, that final pulling the print off of the press. And then that led into painting, which was another medium I was not a fan of. Before this, I would only like to draw with a pencil or a pen, and that was it. I refused to do color. I refused to do anything besides black and white or illustration. Yeah, when I definitely got to college, it was very clear there was a lot of people who had just as much talent as I did. But what I found, or more, but what I found as the years went on is what really made like the art student, like the good art student, was not necessarily the talent, but the drive, and whoever had the most drive was going to make it. And I guess it sounds kind of weird to to say that talent doesn't really get you very far. I mean, it will, but if you don't have the drive, it's not going to get you anywhere. You could be the most talented person in the world, but if you're just sitting in your room every day and not doing anything, it's just not going to help you at all. But as I moved on through college, a lot of great professors helped me kind of figure out that I was just kind of hiding myself from these opportunities. So it definitely changed my attitude going to art school, and it helped me a lot. I don't know if I learned anything like it's it's kind of weird when you go to art studio classes because you go to a biology class and it's like, well, you learn how plants work and how animals digestive systems work, or how just nature in general works, stuff like that. And same thing with math, learn equations. But in art, at first it will seem like you're just kind of teaching you stuff you may already know. but as you go on and you're just kind of working along with their parameters, you kind of figure out that learning, you're teaching yourself almost just by working. And the more that you work, the more that you learn. So it comes down to practice, I guess, at that point. So since I was a kid, growing up with my mom being an artist, it never really occurred to me that there was any other option. It kind of felt like destiny to be an artist from a young age, but I think I was more arrogant about it then. I kind of had more of an attitude that it was gonna happen quickly. I was just good because I was surrounded. I mean, like, I was just supported, and I would be given materials to work with. My mom, like that kiln we have behind you there. We've had it since I was a small kid. Well, I don't know if that's the same one, but we've had a kiln for a while because my mom's been working. She had her own like mold making studio in the basement, so there would just be she'd have hundreds of blank molds, and so I think that was one of the first art experiences I had was painting these kind of molds. Just like Easter bunnies, and she's just like, sure, paint on this one because she had hundreds, so just she could sacrifice one for her kid, and so I remember learning like dry brushing from doing that. Like that's a technique, and that was probably the first technique I learned. It was until I was around other people who had the same ambitions as I did, and seeing how much I was getting a lot more respect from my peers in college than I was in high school. So I think that was the moment that I really gained confidence and was able to truly tell myself that I'm going to be an artist. First time I really got big approval from another peer was I was working on a painting my sophomore year in like the introductory to painting class. Just like it was like nighttime, and one of the what do you call them, veteran students, I guess, was working on her junior show on the other side of the room, and then she was just taking a break, and she was walking around, and then she was just blown away by the painting I was working on, and I think that really meant a lot to me to see her. She was such a great artist, and then she went out of her way to just really uh, really just compliment me and just like notice all the different like intricacies of my piece. And I don't think before that anyone had really said anything like she had, and we became pretty good friends after that too, because uh, just helping each other out, just like, what do you think this needs to be changed about my painting or what my drawing, and it's good to have people like that. And I think once I started getting more approval like that in college, I realized how unimportant the disapproval I would get in high school was. Like, so it doesn't really matter. So if I work after college, I figured if I work at Bill's, um, I don't really need anyone's approval. Even my parents, they were not really keen on the idea of me working at Bill's. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna work at Bill's?" I was like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Nah, that's you're better than that." And I was like, "Well, it's not that I don't think I'm better than that. I just think it's the right thing." And so that's why I told them, and that's why I started working there. So even though I love my parents, even their approval in the long run isn't as important as it may seem. It's kind of finding my own happiness, I guess. So when I start a project, uh, I tend to at least I found I tend to get stuck in the planning stages a lot because it kind of feels safe there. Anything can happen in the planning stages, and it it really is. It just feels the most exciting at that moment, and it's only when you kind of start trying to finish it that it and you're kind of realizing maybe it's not going the way you planned it. That's when it kind of gets scary and uncomfortable. And I mean, Leonardo da Vinci has been known for not finishing many of his pieces. he has a lot of unfinished work, just like in sketchbooks. And I'm sure it has something to do with that. I mean, I'm sure that he was feeling something very similar to what I'm feeling. And I made a lot of work in college that I would show to my professors, and they'd be like, this doesn't look finished. And I was like, but doesn't it look great? And they'd be like, well, still doesn't look finished. And so I had a lot of disagreements with professors about how finished my pieces should be. But at that point, I kind of had figured out the whole approval thing. Even though my professors are there to help me and tell me what might be good for what I'm working on, I didn't necessarily have to listen to them. Well, not really. I was listening to them, but to act on their suggestions. Or even like being told one thing by a professor and it kind of inspiring you to do something different, and they may not even realize they had done that. So it's always helpful to listen. I mean, when I say like, don't think that approval from others is necessary, isn't necessary, it doesn't mean like you have to ignore what everyone says. You still should listen to what people have to say, because it's important to make those connections. Like when people ask like, oh, what's this piece going to be about? I don't really want to tell them because I don't know where exactly it's going to go. It could end up different than what I say at that moment. And I think that's been true with every piece. For me at least, I've always just rolled with the punches. Or, well, in college, I always started rolling with the punches. I think the first assignment I got freshman year that really brought this to light was my teacher, Greg Picaro. He's the one who did the prints on my wall there. The first week of class, he's like, all right, everyone brought their sketchbook, right? And everyone had it, and he's like, okay, so by the end of the week, you need to do 20 drawings only in ballpoint pen from observation. They all have to be different objects. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. At least none of my high school classes were that intense, and that's probably just has to do with the fact that not everyone in an art class in high school is there because they want to be an artist, So they kind of have to balance that out. They can't expect every kid to try as hard in an elective class than is required to really become a good artist, because it takes a lot of practice. And so after doing those pen projects, because before that I'd draw in pencil, and then I would use pen to make it darker and look nicer, have more contrast, but I never just like only used a pen. That never like occurred to me. And after doing that, the first week I kind of realized how much I loved working like that. And then the week after that, everyone was like, all right, we're done with those terrible pen drawings that we have to do. And he's like, all right, now you have to do 40 by the end of the next week. And then through the whole semester, every week, that's what it was like. But not counting, the bigger projects being assigned on the side, like the more full size kind of stuff. And and kind of I guess I didn't force myself, but being forced to work in ballpoint pen like that, and it really makes you kind of just have to deal with the mistakes you have, or deal with the mistakes you make. And the more mistakes you make, the more you kind of realize how much they're helping you more than they are hurting you. And I think that's a big struggle a lot of people will have who want to go into art, is they're afraid to make mistakes. But that's what it's all about to me now. So I guess you could say a mistake is something, just the simplest definition is something you intend to do, it does not go as you intended. And I guess this seems like it's going back to how I obsessed in high school about getting every line right when I was trying to draw from an image, and it's like, I gotta make this as much like the photograph as possible. And it never really came out that well. I would finish stuff and it would be decent looking, but it always kind of like looked weird. And because I had this mindset that I was making all these mistakes, I think that's why my work kind of turned out like that. But once I kind of just went with the mindset of mistakes aren't really that bad, it all working on stuff just kind of felt smoother. It felt easier. It was more enjoyable too. And I think I realized that the only person who thought the mistakes I were making were mistakes was me. And really, the people who look at your stuff, unless they're kind of a jerk, they're not gonna know that you're making mistakes. Because there'll be people out there I've met who will just, no matter how good something is, they'll just kind of down talk it. Because it's really easy to do. If you try, it's easy to down talk something. But it's not really effective in the long run. I don't remember who said it. I think I was just watching like painting tutorials on YouTube one day, and there's one that the guy said the most important thing when you're drawing or painting or making anything is not to make the correct mark, is to make a confident mark. And as long as that mark is confident, no one will know the difference.